Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for those people who have their natal moon in conjunction with Pluto. I have this placement and I realized not too long ago when I started making these types of videos that involve the different planets and the different houses and things like that, that I had kind of a sub-influence of Scorpio going on because my sun sign is Sagittarius. And in Vedic astrology, I think it is actually Scorpio. So I had to come to terms with some of this because if your sun is in a sign like Sagittarius or Libra, any of the masculine signs, Aries, Gemini, which kind of is airy-fairy and not very intense and things like that, you might be in denial of this side of yourself because it doesn't show up in this necessarily overt way. I suppose it can in some instances, but it's not the same as having the moon in Scorpio or the sun in Scorpio. In my case, I have the sun in the 8th house. And if you have the sun in conjunction with Pluto, that would be another example of that. And these are sub-influences for those people who have sun signs that are more associated with being extroverted and more open in life, because this can be a very secretive position, as can the contacts with the sun and Pluto. And, anybody with the sun in the 8th house or even the moon in the 8th house, there's a secrecy that the person employs. And I think it's instinctual too, but they also employ it to protect themselves. So I always thought of myself as an open book, but look at what I'm doing here. I'm not showing my face. And I realized these things after the fact. I just kind of thought, wow, I'm a lot more private than I even thought I was. I'm a lot more suspicious than I thought I was. So it was kind of funny. It was kind of a revelation. So I've compiled a list, and I want to give a shout out to this site that I have utilized before. It's called LeahWhitehorse.com, and apparently if that's an actual woman, she's an astrologer, and she has a lot of insightful information. And I was just compiling the list on my own because I figured I could get away with it, but I just wanted to kind of double check with other people, and I found her explanations to be just right on the money. And I've used it before, so it bears giving credit to it. So some of the things that I wrote down, I did write down that the sub-influence is scorpionic. So if you have an inner planet in Scorpio, or you are an astrology buff, you already know what this represents, what Scorpio. Now, Scorpio is a water sign, and Scorpio is ruled by Mars and Pluto, and those are not considered light and fluffy planets, regardless if you follow Eastern or Western astrology. But Eastern astrology, Vedic astrology, describes them as malefics. And this means that they think that they exert a negative influence. At least that's what, I would imagine. And I have a more open attitude towards it because I don't think anything is, overtly bad or good. I think that anything that we think can be good can actually have a negative side and vice versa. So that is something that Scorpio represents a lot of extreme emotions, but usually the shadow side, the dark side, the taboos in life, the secrets in life, the secret societies, the conspiracy theories that there's something more that is happening that we just don't know about. And so the person with a natal moon in conjunction with Scorpio is going to have this kind of a nature to one degree or another. So this is going to involve obsessive emotions sometimes. And that was another thing that I realized about me, is that I am obsessive. But because when, you have to look at other factors in the chart, because they will modify that. You can't let something stand by itself. And if you have like the sun in a fixed sign, but especially in a sign like Scorpio or even Taurus, and especially if this is a relationship issue, and you have the moon in conjunction with Pluto, this can indicate an obsessive love nature, where you are you don't let go. Like, even if the other person breaks up with you, it's like not over for you. But in general, the emotions are very, very strong. Now, in my case, my moon is in Virgo, and so is Pluto. So Virgo is an earth sign, and it's not particularly emotional. And I always wondered why I was so emotional, in spite of having a lot of earth, as well as the sun in Sagittarius. I just didn't get that. And now I realize why. It's some of these aspects that can give you an emotional tendency, even if the signs themselves don't lend themselves to that. And so another thing, this extreme of emotion, this really strong feelings. Some people are relatively neutral. Meaning that, and that always drives me crazy, because, and now I realize why it drives me so crazy, because I feel like if you don't have a strong feeling about one thing versus another, then you're not really engaging deeply enough into life, that you're just kind of skimming the surface of life. And this is my opinion, obviously. This is not necessarily the truth, the ultimate truth, but I really think that there's a lot of truth to it, is that, I feel like we came here to really engage our emotions and feel things at a deep level, and not shy away from difficult emotions, or try to get away with having relationships that are just very superficial and don't really get to the marrow, get to the kind of the heart of the matter. And I know that I have always been very much, if I'm not into something full blown, that it's hard for me to feign interest in it. And you may be the same way. So, I mean, I'm sorry that I'm talking a lot about myself, but this is because I'm trying to relate it to personal experiences, in the hopes that you can see that astrology really does play out in real life. And so there's a fearlessness, there's an emotional fearlessness with this placement, where you may let the chips fall where they may. When you are dealing with people, there can be a ruthlessness. I didn't see that particular word, but I would imagine, because Scorpio has that quality, an emotional ruthlessness, where you don't want to baby people, and to keep them in this fantasy of a situation. And I think, like with myself, if I'm dealing with clients and things like that, that attitude has sometimes been something where I have to remember to temper it, that people can be very sensitive to certain things. And even if they are in denial, it's a protective device to keep them from feeling a lot of pain. And there's just that kind of like, hey, pull up your big girl panties and deal with it type of an attitude that is also present in people who have prominent Scorpio, like the moon in Scorpio. But there's a fearlessness on your end as well. You're not a snowflake. You're not somebody who's going to shrivel up or melt if somebody says something that it cuts to the bone. Bring it on as far as you're concerned. And I think sometimes that is the Mars influence, just like Aries, of this kind of like, and what? You start it, I'll finish it for you, type of a thing. The mother, because the moon can indicate the mother, may be a devouring woman, meaning smothering. I joke about, the only difference between the word mother and smother is the S. And, so whether that manifests, plays out as a overprotective mother or a mama bear who is in general very loving, not like destructive to the child or the adult child, but is very loving, then it can, manifest in a good way. But if there is some kind of negativity within that person, that can be extremely toxic, because that person is coming from, they didn't say it here, but I would even say like a competitive type of a vibe, because Pluto craves power, and in order to, it's almost like, like thinking of the mother with the daughter when she's a teenager and she's developing and and men are starting to look at her, and the mother, depending on the mother's age, the mother freaks out because she may feel like she's on the way out. Men aren't going to look at her, and so she starts to really, double down. But in those types of cases, chances are that the mother has already been abusive. It's not like something new, but perhaps it's in a new way. Now, I didn't put this down, but one of the words they used was resentful, and that certainly can be the case. The mother can be secretive, so she can have these scorpionic traits. You should look at the sign of the moon to determine also what type of behavior or person that she is. Abusive, suspicious, so she may convey that life, you can't trust people, and then the child absorbs that, and then they become hypervigilant to the outside world or emotionally kind of suspicious of other people's intentions. So that can be very interesting, because that can be its own thing. Now, think about it in terms of how a child develops. A girl, her mother is the one person that she's going to identify with. Even if the mother is in and out of the child's life and she's being taken care of by the grandmother, she still is going to have that connection to the mother and maybe even identity. So if the mother is very controlling, she might be, and if it's a male towards his mother, now I can't speak to same-sex relationships, but if the man is interested in women, does he either find himself attracted to those types of women who are very controlling and very, smothering and suspicious, or does he completely rebel against that and is almost like antagonistic towards women because he's afraid of that same kind of treatment? One of the things I didn't write down here, which I should have, is this reactive nature that I would call it a form of rebellion, where you're kind of acting out because of how you were treated. So that can create a lot of problems, because obviously you're coming from a position of reacting, not actually acting. Now, one of the things about this placement can be skeletons in the closet. Sexual abuse is an example of that. Pluto can relate to sexuality and abuse because of the power issues involved. But any kind of skeletons in the closet, and these are things, again, there might not even be shame about these secrets, but there is a strong feeling of like, I don't want other people to know about them, and this secretive nature. there may be a sexual aura that emanates through the eyes, or just this vibe that is coming from the person that is overtly sexual. And this is something that the person may not be aware of, or they may play it up, especially if they have certain rising signs that lend themselves to really focusing on their beauty or their looks, like Taurus, and even Libra. Libra isn't sultry, but Libra still is interested in being attractive, and that's what Venus, the ruler, is about, attracting. And so, for instance, I have Taurus rising, so I'm ruled by Venus. Now, this is when I was younger, and I say before my first Saturn return, I was wearing a lot of tight outfits, mini skirts, really trying to be provocative. Why? Because that was the way that I saw to, one, communicate who I was, but also that was my identity. And after that, I became completely different. I'm not like that anymore. And it wasn't something that I had to force myself to do. It just came in time. I do believe that the Saturn return had something to do with that I grew up, and I no longer thought of that as the ultimate thing that, defined me. And it did take time. It wasn't just overnight and, over a matter of years, but definitely at some point that became what I was all about, was, other things other than the physical appearance, and being sexy too. But what they were saying is that there can just be, even through the way the eyes are, is that there's like a seductive quality. And I mentioned secretiveness is used, or secrecy, I don't know if you say it, is used in order to deal with whatever is going on. So it's a coping mechanism. Another coping mechanism can be resorting to controlling obsessive behavior. When you feel out of control emotionally, you may try to control those around you. I actually was just thinking about that with my partner, and I was kind of maybe micromanaging him a little bit, and I realized, whoa, you must feel out of control somehow, and I can see it like a lot easier than I did in the past, and maybe it's because I'm doing these types of things. One of the great talents of this position is having great perception. Psychological analysis of others. So as a profession, you would probably make a great psychologist. You can read other people's behavior and see their motivations. And, there are so many professions where this can come in handy. It doesn't have to be just a psychologist. It could be some kind of a healer, where you have to get in touch with where people are coming from. And one thing that I was told about when I think I was only 2 or maybe 3 at the most, that I was out to eat with my parents, and this mother, I think, said to her child, in a nearby table, "I'm going to kill you," or something like that. And my parents looked at each other like, oh my gosh, that I was hearing this woman say that. And I reassured my parents. I said, don't worry. She doesn't mean it. She's just saying that. And, I was very young to say something like that. But I could read into that situation, obviously, and knew that she didn't mean that. And that is not typical for a young child. Young children tend to be very literal. So obviously, I would say that there might be definite psychic ability with this position. I'd never call myself a psychic. I just say it's about perception, having strong ability to perceive things. And I don't see that as even intuitive, because it doesn't seem like I'm just trying to get something from anything. I'm actually like inferring it from what people are telling me. And so you may have that, or you may have like straight up psychic abilities. But the point is that it is a powerful aspect. And if the person is willing to own it and not try to play it down, or to even not even know that they have it and wonder why they are a certain way, now you know. So, we can look at different houses and how that would affect people. I was thinking when I was doing the sun in conjunction with Pluto yesterday, I was thinking, oh man, I should talk about, the different houses where this conjunction may occur. And, I'm not going to get into every house. In my case, it's in the 5th house, which is the house of love and creativity. For some people, this can be obsession with love, or, having love in their life. With other people, this can be a creative thing where the person may really be absorbed in themselves creating art. And so to me, this is also a sense of where your greatest transformation is, because that's where they say that we have to look, is what house this, Pluto is in. But then when you add that moon to the mix, it's going to strengthen that, because the moon is our emotional nature. So for instance, if you have this in your 1st house, it's like you may be a sensitive person, and maybe other people can tell that you're very sensitive, but they may also feel a little bit uneasy because they sense that you can look right through them. And this is, I think I already did I did Pluto, natal Pluto in the 1st house. So if you do have this particular placement, look that up. I'm going to be doing Pluto in the other houses as well. But this can be somebody who is an emotional survivor of something and of trauma. Pluto can be trauma. So, the 1st house can be like when you come into this world, like what do you experience? So it's very fascinating, and I hope that this resonated for you. If you would like me to look at your chart, I have different readings. All my readings are on sale until the middle of December 2000. And thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.